Good evening, everybody. Here we are near the end of November, and I hope you're all keeping really well and warm as much as you can. And tonight I wanted to revisit bone health because I know for a lot of my ladies, as we're approaching later years in our life and particularly post-menopause, we know that we need to take care of our bones. Now, I have spoken about bone health before, how we can do that through our diet and specific nutrients, and I must stress here that it really isn't just about calcium when we think about bone health. It goes much broader than that. So my YouTube channel, Peyton Principles Natural Health, does have a link in there to my talk about how to take care of bone health and how to prevent osteoporosis and how to think about that from a nutrition point of view. But I wanted to talk tonight about bone health and how we should think gut first. Now, many of you know, of course, that I am very passionate about gut health, the research I do around this, and how we now know that 90% of disease starts in the gut. So I don't think it should come as any surprise. It certainly doesn't really come as a surprise to me that the more we learn now, that we can start to recognize that in so many areas, and just like with bone health, that we are finding through some of the sort of early stages of research that actually we need to think about taking care of the gut and the gut microbiome when we need to think about thinking and looking after our bones. So I always like to think gut first. Yes, of course, diet's important, but sometimes if we don't take care of the gut, then in a way it doesn't really matter what we do from a nutrition point of view if we don't take care of the gut first of all. So just a couple of statistics for you. At the moment in the UK, there are 3.5 million people in the UK living with osteoporosis. I didn't do my maths. Is that 5% of the population? It's a lot of people, 3.5 million. I think we're approaching nearly 70 million population now in the UK. And not surprisingly, because we tend to think of postmenopause and ladies with osteoporosis, 1 in 2 women and 1 in 5 men will break a bone due to osteoporosis. So quite staggering numbers, aren't they? 50% of women are going to break a bone due to osteoporosis. But there is positive news, as I said. We know we can do a lot through our diet, but positive news about the growing influence of the gut health, the gut microbiome, and taking care of our bones. So first of all, thinking about this really important special microbiome, the trillions of bacteria, there are some yeast, there are some fungus, and may even be a parasite that even now may be considered beneficial to us, not all, mind you. But these trillions of microbes that are living in our gut, the role that they play in regulating bone mass. And we know with bones, something to be aware of, the bones are continuously remodeling. We have osteoblasts and osteoclasts. So osteoblasts, I like to think of the B as osteoblasts is building bone, and osteoclasts are breaking bone down, and it's this balance. So bone is a living tissue, and it's continuously building up and breaking down again. So it's called remodeling. And we want to make sure that through the remodeling process, we haven't got too much osteoclast activity taking place, that bones are going to be breaking down more than they can be built back up again. So there has been some research to show the gut microbiome, when it's healthy, we'll talk about that, has a role to play in helping this remodeling process and maintaining bone mass. Now, just a little bit of the science here. When we think about the gut microbiome and all these bacteria, they produce things called metabolites. So what the bacteria do is they ferment some of our food and things that are passing through us, predominantly fibers, and these they ferment and then they produce metabolites, like a byproduct of what they're doing. And so the beneficial bacteria are producing really important metabolites. Some of the metabolites are going to go on and feed other beneficial bacteria. That's why they work synergistically together. Some of them are helping to maintain the strength of the gut wall, which is really important. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And some of them will pass through into what I call the systemic circulation. So they pass through into the bloodstream and they have a beneficial effect elsewhere in the body. One of the most well-known sort of group of metabolites that we know about are called short-chain fatty acids, not to be confused with fats that we eat, but there are short-chain fatty acids, very specific ones like butyrate is a well-known one, that are produced by these good bacteria. And what has been found is that these metabolites have a really positive influence on bone growth and bone remodeling and helping to maintain bone mass. So when we have a really healthy population of good beneficial bacteria and we are feeding them with complex carbohydrates, so think vegetables, think oats, think brown rice, complex carbohydrates, not your refined ones like white rice, things like that, but the complex ones with that fiber, they produce a short chain fatty acids, and that can go on to help have a positive influence on this bone remodeling and creating bone mass. Now, I said about the gut wall, I don't know how many of you have heard of the phrase leaky gut and bone health. Now, we know the health of the gut wall is really critical to stop toxicity passing into the bloodstream. So I said short chain fatty acids can pass through. That's a good thing. What we don't want is toxicity being able to pass through, or other metabolites that aren't healthy. And this is where we talk about this concept of the strong gut barrier, or you may hear about a weakened gut barrier, intestinal permeability, or leaky gut. And when that happens, you're getting substances that can pass through into the bloodstream. Won't be coming from like short chain fatty acids, which are good, but other toxicity can get from the gut and into the bloodstream if there is an element of leaky gut. I know medical profession may think twice about what that is, but when you do the research using proper PubMed type studies, intestinal permeability is now recognised as a thing, and the fact that there are substances that can get into the bloodstream that are not good for us, they can create inflammation in the body. And one of the things I found is that when these substances can create an inflammatory immune response, this inflammation can be damaging to the bones in terms of increasing bone breakdown. So too much inflammation going on that may stem from substances getting into the bloodstream, creating an inflammatory immune response. It can encourage bone breakdown. So it's going to potentially weaken bone health overall. Now, I talk a lot, obviously, not just about the overall gut microbiome, but I talk a lot about diversity and abundance. So we know there's probably 1,000 different strains that we know of that are of the beneficial types. We will only potentially have about 160 different strains, but we need as many of those strains as we possibly can. It is influenced by our diets. Different cultures, different parts of the world will have high numbers of these good strains, and we will have different ones as well, which we need to maintain. So we need this diversity, we need the abundance. And there is another link between a decrease in the microbial diversity and weakened bone growth. Now, the gut diversity, I'm afraid, part and parcel of getting older, we are going to start losing some diversity just through living our lives, through medication and antibiotics and stress and the diet. By the time you get to 80, 90 years of age, are we really going to hang on to all those strains that we had or should have had when we were 20? Realistically, we're not. So there is research to show that as the microbial diversity starts to decline, and we can take care and try and protect that as much as we can, that it coincides with when there is also an increase in osteoporosis. And as we know osteoporosis may be higher in postmenopausal women, but men get it too. There's a lot we can do to take care of our bones, but we need to take care of the gut microbial diversity first and foremost, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So probiotics, are they going to be good? So the probiotics, these are the beneficial bacteria that we take in capsule form that consists of good bacteria that when we swallow them, we hope they are going to improve numbers of beneficial bacteria that thrive and grow in the gut. There is some controversy around those unless they're produced in a certain way, unless they're going to be able to pass through the acidity of the stomach and survive. Are they going to adhere to the gut wall? And it needs to be healthy is another matter. But we know that they do have a very important role to play. But at one time, we just thought we could take any old probiotics and, it's going to do anything. But that's not the case. We now know that probiotics need to be targeted for with specific strains for specific health conditions. And this is a massive area of research. So there has been some more work on this. There have been some promising studies to do with lactobacillus strains. You might have heard of lactobacillus acidophilus, for example. When you buy probiotics or some of those drinks, you may have seen that name like lactobacillus on there. We know that's there's a group of those that are very beneficial. Certain strains of lactobacillus in a study of postmenopausal women with an average age of 76, where they're more prone to get poorer bone health and osteoporosis. After 1 year, the bone mineral density loss, if I'll explain this in a moment, was less than those taking the placebo, i.e. there was less loss than those taking the placebo. They held on to their bone mass density better than those not taking the probiotic. And in another study, there was a probiotic with 3 types of lactobacillus strains over 1 year, and there was an improvement in lumbar bone loss. So bear in mind, I'd said that we are going to notice a decline in our bone health, but what we want to hang on to it as much as we can into later lives, so that we are less likely to get breakages as we age. And so what we're finding with some of these probiotics is that the bone density loss is not as great during the time of taking the probiotics compared to not taking it, which is the placebo. And when we talk about trials and placebos, it means that the individuals in the trial don't know what's in the capsule. So for example, capsule could have the probiotics, and the other group will take the capsule, and they won't know which ones are taking the empty capsule, which is the placebo, and those that are taking the actual ones with the probiotics. That's to stop an influence of sort of mentally thinking you're doing something good, which could influence possibly how you live your life and your diet you do as well. So some really interesting studies there, but a lot more research is required around probiotic use and specific strains. So I'm interested to see where that goes. But in my view, why wait to take care of your gut health? As I said at the start, 90% of disease is now known to start in the gut. And we're beginning to learn about bone health and how we can take care of our bones and look after them and keep them stronger for longer, hopefully, by taking care of our gut as well. So what can we do? So I talk about the microbial diversity and abundance, and we can start to achieve that when we think about feeding the gut just like we think about feeding our bodies. When we think about feeding our bodies, we know we need proteins, we know we need good fats, we know we need soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, we need vitamins, we need minerals. We get this from eating different types of foods. When we think about feeding the gut, this comes from eating lots of different types of fiber, soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, resistant starch, and we get that the more diverse a range of vegetables and plant-based foods that we eat. I will have spoken before about eating 10 a day of vegetables with, well, that would include a little bit of fruit. We don't want to overdose on fruit because of the sugar. A complete range of vegetables. Eat the rainbow, you'll have heard that term, I'm sure, with lots of colour. The different colours are going to have different beneficial effects on the gut. And there's many different types that you can possibly eat. The other thing is about eating 40 different plant types in a week. And plant types can include herbs and spices, brown rice, quinoa, fermented foods. It doesn't have to just be those vegetables and fruit. And when you sit down and start to think about it, it can start off by thinking, how can you possibly achieve it? But when you start to add in, you know, parsley and garlic and maybe adding some ginger to a stir fry, these all count as one of those 40 different plant foods. So really go on a journey to the supermarket, think about adding different plant foods into your shopping basket. Certainly buy seasonal, but you know, just try and eat as many different things in the plant world as you can on a weekly basis. That's not the same as a vegan diet, but it's about increasing that diversity, because these well, I'm going to use the word prebiotic fibers, are what's feeding the gut bacteria, keeps them strong, keeps them healthy, keeps them multiplying. And as I said, the metabolites they produce go on to help create the healthy gut wall, which in turn helps to keep a healthy environment for the microbes to grow. So it has a double-edged sword, and when we look after the gut wall and keep the barrier strong, then it helps to protect against leaky gut. So we need to do all those things. We need to do that throughout life. The health of the gut and the microbiome should always be considered when we think about bone health, about those really key nutrients: calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K, boron and protein. So a good bone product would contain all these things. In fact, I posted yesterday morning, I have a pot called OsteoGuard that I have available to give away. If anybody wants it, they need to email me, Caroline at PeytonPrinciples.com, or put a message here if they would like it. No cost. I'll send it to you wherever you are in the UK, within reason. I'll post it to you. But you need to think about magnesium. Now, the reason for not just calcium is all these other things, D, K, boron, magnesium, or what we know as cofactors. They help to get the calcium from the gut into the bones, and they help to get the calcium from the bones and from the gut, from the blood, sorry, from the gut to the blood, and from the blood and into the bone. You need cofactors to encourage that. And protein helps to keep the bone matrix strong. So we need protein in that bone matrix alongside the calcium. So we need all those nutrients. You need to think about weight bearing exercise. Every Monday morning I go and do body pump at the gym. I actually do quite enjoy it. I've done it for many years. And you don't have to be a weight bodybuilder, you know, just do the weights you can build it up in time. And body pump is an all over workout with weights. No, you don't have to go to the gym, join a gym and do body pump, but we need to think about weight bearing exercise to keep the bones strong. You might want to go and do dancing. You could do a little bit of running. Trampolining is also known to be really good for our bones as well. That bouncing up and down, very good for the lymphatic system as well. So all of these things are essential throughout life. Weight bearing exercise, getting the right nutrients, and feeding the gut and the gut microbiome throughout life are the things that we need to do to help maintain bones. My blog goes out in my newsletter every Friday morning. So I've written a blog that contains all this information. If you want it, you need to get on my newsletter list. If you want that, I need your email address, so you can DM me, drop me a message to say you'd like to be on my newsletter list. If you join the group and gave me your email address, then you should be getting this. So you get the blogs, not every week, but at the moment when I do these lives, I've written a blog, it goes out in the newsletter, so you'd have that information to hand rather than just watching the live. But as I said, my YouTube channel, Peyton Principles Natural Health, will have the video. I checked, it is there, has the video about, you've got to go back quite a bit because I think I did it quite a long time ago, but it's definitely there about how to take care of your bone health, and all from a nutritional perspective. So thank you for watching tonight. I hope to see you next week. I hope to be here next week, but I'll certainly be letting you know in advance. Again, always, if there's any topics you'd like me to talk about on a Tuesday night, do let me know. And thank you for watching tonight. Have a lovely week, everybody. Take care. Bye.